Governor Bev Perdue vetoes the House and Senate's 2012-2013 compromise budget. What it means heading into the weekend. Next.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.
Hello, I'm Kelly McCullen. Thank you so much for watching this week. Governor Bev Perdue set the tone for the 2012 legislative session's final days by breaking out her veto stamp and vetoing the compromise budget bill Republicans passed last week. Governor Perdue's Friday morning press conference outlined her reasons for vetoing the 2012-2013 budget bill. It had appeared this bill enjoyed enough Democratic support in the House to override any budget veto. The governor says education funding remains inadequate in the 2012-2013 budget legislation. She says expiring temporary federal education money is not being replaced with enough new state dollars, creating an even deeper hole for the schools. Despite Republican arguments, they're spending more state dollars on public education.
Not only are we failing to do better in this budget, but under the budget that has been passed by the General Assembly, we actually do worse. If the budget they passes becomes law, schools across North Carolina will get about $190 million less than they got last year.
Republican leaders warned the governor earlier this week that her veto would likely mean the 2011 budget law would remain in effect if her veto couldn't be overridden. The 2011 budget was passed when 5 House Democrats joined every House Republican to override the governor's budget veto.
So we hope the governor will realize this is going to help schools, it's going to help Medicaid, it's going to help a lot of other areas of the state. And in the absence of this, we're going to have to go back to a budget last year that we feel like is going to make education, health and human services, a number of other areas of this state very difficult to manage their finances over the next year.
House Minority Leader Representative Joe Hackney told Legislative Week in Review that House veto-proof majority might not hold if the governor were to veto this budget bill.
We don't know what they're going to do this time. In fact, there are indications that that will not happen again. So Democrats have never been, either in the Congress or here or in my time in the legislature, a crack the whip kind of caucus.
The new budget bill's provisions would have taken effect July 1st, this weekend, but with no new budget bill signed, the current budget rolls along into its second year, with spending cuts holding, federal education money expired and not filled even partially, and any 2012 spending promises certainly on hold. As of Friday afternoon, Democratic Representatives William Brissett and Dewey Hill say they will vote to override Governor Perdue's veto. The Republicans, if united and all are present for the override vote early next week, they will need 2 additional Democratic votes. Extended interviews with House Majority Leader Paul Stam and the Carolina Journal's Barry Smith are coming up soon. But first, here's the meat of Governor Perdue's comments on the budget veto Friday morning.
Now, I understand clearly that we have a divided government in North Carolina. And I understand that with the Republican majorities in the General Assembly, legislators were never likely to pass a budget that made all the investments that I thought were necessary for the future of North Carolina. But I was prepared from day one to compromise. I was willing and determined to work with the leaders of the General Assembly to reach a budget agreement that I could allow to become law. I really wanted that to happen. So after the budget was passed last week, and I had time to review it, you know that I reached out to Speaker Tillis and President Pro Tem Berger and really tried to forge a consensus with them. Now the budget has been passed. The one I proposed were far apart. I didn't ask the leaders to meet me halfway. I didn't ask them even to split the difference. I simply asked them quite clearly to do just a little bit better. I asked them to invest a little bit more in our children's future and in some other key priorities for the people of this state. I thought the leaders and I had positive discussions, but they ultimately told me no. They said to me, take it or leave it. I refused to give up. I urged them to keep working, and I actually remained hopeful that we could reach an agreement. Then earlier this week, you all know that we learned that the state's fiscal year is going to close out with an additional $117 million in over-collected revenue. I was really immediately hopeful that this unexpected money could provide a path forward to a bipartisan agreement. I really thought that could happen. So again, I reached out to the Speaker and to the President Pro Tem, and I urged them to devote a few of these dollars to the resources in our schools, to jobs, to public safety, and other critical areas. Let me be clear. The extra investments that I asked for would not have corrected all the flaws that were in the budget. Far from it. Even with these extra investments, the budget was going to be a long way from the budget that I presented and would leave a lot of important needs unmet. But in light of the reality that we find ourselves in light of the policy and the ideological divisions in our government these days, and in light of all the disagreements, I thought the budget agreement I offered them actually made sense. The extra resources I requested were reasonable. They would have made the budget just a little bit better. And I actually believe they would have helped prepare our kids to more successfully compete in the workforce of the future. More importantly, the agreement I offered was a workable compromise that could have gotten done, you all. All it took was a willingness to cooperate. I'm sorry to report to you today that they again told me no. They again said in so many words to take it or leave it. So after a long and careful consideration of more than 2 weeks and many offers, I've decided that I have no choice but to veto this budget.
There you hear the Governor, Bev Perdue, vetoing your bill. Majority Leader Paul Stam, a representative from Wake County. Thanks for being on the show. Did she threaten to veto this bill before the Republican-Democratic caucus thinned out for the weekend?
Oh, she did, sure. She's been threatening to veto it for a while.
So you weren't surprised this morning? You hear a press conference being called for 10 a.m. and...
Actually, I was surprised because her action is completely different than her reasons. Her reasons is that she wants more money for, primarily for education, K-12 education. But her action, if her veto is sustained, is there's $250 million less for K-12 education, $250 million less for Medicaid. So to accomplish what she wants to accomplish, she did exactly the opposite act.
The bill, the budget is $20.2 billion. $2 billion.
Right.
And from what I've read on Thursday compared to today, this morning, Friday, it seems $117 million makes the difference between her veto and signature on a budget. Are you buying that, or is this just the first chip thrown out by her to create a weekend of budget negotiations?
I think she believes that most people can't count, that they think that that's a large amount of money as a percentage of $20.2 billion, and it's not. But the strange thing about it is that extra $100 million is not even there. It's essentially we're getting money in May and June instead of in July and August because of some quirks of tax law. So she's thinking she can spend money that is just coming out of receipts for the next fiscal year.
So, but she says it's there to be spent, and in layman's terms, what does it mean? Tax law aside, if I'm doing my household budget and I have $117 million to spend in the scheme of things, how does it work so we can understand that?
Sure, your employer decides to pay you a week early, so therefore, since you have twice as much money for the week, you decide to take a vacation. Well, next week you have nothing, so you can't pay your mortgage or buy your food. It's a accounting gimmick.
You're saying the state would be spending its revenue instead of when it should be spent, they're spending it early, and then you'll need to fill that hole eventually.
Well, we're receiving that $100 million early,
right,
according to the professional economist.
Is there a chance that if you were to go her direction with the $117 million, that the economy could grow? Could you safely assume we will have $117 million as a state come June 30th of 2013?
Absolutely not. Our professional economists tell us absolutely not.
Given the governor's position, she's not running for re-election. You could argue she has nothing to lose by vetoing this budget because she will not be defeated for office. There'll be a new governor and lieutenant governor coming on board. What does this do down here? What does it do, you think, to the Republicans in the Senate and in the House? I know you can speak for the House, but how does this change the dynamic going forward?
Well, she's acting in an incomprehensible manner to me. But when we get to the override vote on Monday, I'm believing that the Democrats of the House will be more understanding about it and realizing that if they don't override the veto, there's no pay raise, there's no cost of living adjustment for retirees, there's $250 million less for education, there's $250 million less for Medicaid, and it just makes no sense.
Your crossover Democrats, however, I can count 3 right off the top of my head that will not be back here. So they have nothing to lose by sticking with the governor. Representative William Brisson, who crossed over, says he will stick with it, but he barely survived the Democratic challenge. So does the idea that your crossover votes aren't necessarily seeking re-election, does that take some of that static off and some of that tension that you would need to get those 70-odd votes you need?
I think those crossover Democrats, and I'm hopeful other Democrats who realize the consequence of a no vote, will just exercise good judgment and realize this is not a political vote. It's a vote on whether they want the spending to actually go up 2.5% from last year or if they want it to go less. And every Democrat I talk to wants spending to go up. That's the name of their game.
Now, set aside the anticipated revenue, the overpayment, as she calls it, what you say is just early payment. The Senate wanted a $100 million rainy day fund for Medicaid that I don't recall you in the House having that in, but nonetheless, that's a reserve fund of $100 million. $17 million less than she would say would make her happy. Can you bend on the rainy day reserve fund? Would the House be willing to do that? Because it is a Senate idea, and you gave the Senate a lot in their budget.
Well, to go down to zero in a budget would be very imprudent fiscal folly. Our revenue estimates are just that, estimates. $100 million cushion out of $20.2 billion is way less than the statutes call for. It's perilously close to what we should not do.
Looking ahead to this weekend and to early next week for folks who will certainly key in on what legislators do for once, how does the process work? Will it be you on the phone? Will it be Speaker Tillis? Will it be Representative Harold Brubaker, right, who wrote the budget bill or co-wrote it? How does the process work dealing with a controversy like this? Or I'd say the budget is now in controversy from a technical standpoint.
Well, we're politicians, and we talk a lot, and we talk to other members, and we try to explain the reasons for a yes vote and try to counter the arguments for a no vote.
Are you doing that within the House Democrat and Republican caucus, or do you go to Governor Perdue and instead of calling a press conference to urge her, can you pick up the phone and talk to her people and say, hey, what are you doing?
Well, she's already vetoed it. I don't actually know of any way to unveto a vetoed bill. I think she's probably hoping that we'll override it so she does get the extra money, but she can take credit for vetoing it to sort of show her mettle.
Now, she brought up a business tax exemption, $336 million. Democrats have branded this a tax cut for the wealthy. How do you see that? It looks like $336 million this state could have otherwise.
First of all, the economists at Keenan Flagler at UNC say that tax break and the other tax breaks in our budget bill, the surcharge on corporate personal income, produce about 4,000 jobs per year, additional private sector jobs. Secondly, the tax exemption they're talking about is on the first 50,000, not the last 50,000, on the first 50,000, and it's not on salaries. It's on profits and distribution. So distributions from a LLC or a partnership.
So people who work for a small business, their salaries are not exempted from income taxes. This is the profit of the corporation after all expenses are paid.
Right, but it also doesn't apply to the salaries of the owners. Only on the profit of the distributions, which is far, far less.
Now, if the Senate does as promised, and as Speaker Tillis has alluded, that with her veto, if you can't override it, you won't fight it too hard, you'll go home and you'll stick by your guns with year 2 of this budget plan. What does your year 2 of your budget do to North Carolina, provided you don't get the opportunity to tweak what you thought you would tweak once you sat down this short session?
Well, obviously, we prepare our budget this year to the budget for next year that we passed last year.
Right.
Or we wouldn't have passed it. But it's a livable budget, and we'll make do, and there'll be more savings, but we'll make do.
Representative Paul Stam, thank you so much for being on the show, talking about this budget and this late-breaking Friday development.
Thank you, Kelly.
A few state agencies have their funding eliminated in year 2 of the current budget as their operations underwent what's called a continuation review. That means lawmakers consider the agency's relevancy but withhold funding, making it $0 with an option of restoring those funds later. Current agencies with zero funding beginning July 1st are the DMV's Driver's License Program, UNC Center for Public Television, this TV network, in fact, the General Assembly's Building and Maintenance Division, which operates the legislative building, Family Courts, the Department of Commerce's Office of Science and Technology, the Wildlife Commission's Conservation Education Division, and DHHS's Division of Information Resource Management. Associate editor of the Carolina Journal, Barry Smith, was at Bev Perdue'S press conference this morning. You get the email, and what do you think? You thinking veto going into this or something else?
Well, yeah, I'm still thinking she's going to let the budget become law without her signature. What I've learned, and I think I was telling you earlier, I've learned this week 2 things: not to predict the Supreme Court and not to predict Governor Perdue, because she didn't do what I thought she was going to do.
Well, looking at the scope of this, people are used to seeing the legislature pass what are called continuing resolutions. Oh, we don't have a deal by July 1st. We'll pass a little patch-through bill for a couple of weeks till we reach the real deal. Is that different in this case?
Well, it is to a certain degree, and it's always different in the second year of the biennium. Yeah, that's because last year they actually passed a 2-year budget. Now, the second year did not include as much money for a lot of things, including education, as the first year. Hence, you know, when Governor Perdue says that the money is going to be less for this coming year than it was for the past year, that's true. Also, when the Speaker of the House and the President Pro Tem of the Senate say the money is going to be more for education next year than it would be otherwise without this budget, that's true also, because they did add some money to the education budget.
What kind of hand is it to play when you're playing this political game of poker where the governor says, you didn't give enough money, so I'm going to reject your deal and make you live by the budget you passed last year?
Well, in some ways she is trying to make the legislative leadership blink. She is trying to make the Republican leadership blink. She hasn't been able to do that so far. It didn't work last year. The Republicans were able to garner, I think, 5 Democrats in the House to override the budget. And also last year, you know, they had the supermajority in the Senate, so they didn't need any Democrats. This year, we're not so sure. You know, if they're going to be doing that. They voted for the budget, but they've indicated that, you know, that's not assured when it comes time to override the veto.
Well, the News and Observer this morning has an article with some Democrats quoted that they think they'll stand. You don't need all 5 of those crossovers to stay there. You just need a couple to peel off. You do not have a supermajority.
You're going to need 4 if everybody votes. You're going to need 4 Democrats to join
and Representative Dewey Hill has said, well, I may vote with the governor to sustain the veto, or I might take a walk.
Right, and if a couple of them take a walk, that actually, in some ways, hurts their cause, because overriding the veto, unlike a constitutional amendment, overriding the veto is actually, you have to have 3/5 of those voting and present. So if you're not there, then you don't count. Interesting you brought that up, though. The pressure is really on those 4 or 5 Democrats, and maybe some others. You know, are they going to Are they going to go ahead and vote to override the veto so that more money does get into education and these other programs than otherwise wouldn't be? Or are they going to stick with the governor and risk the possibility of that money not being in there?
Yeah, but wait a minute. Why does it fall on 5 Democrats in the House out of 120 when the Republicans could sit down with Governor Bev Perdue and split up $117 million, and if that money's not there June 30th of next year, worry about it then?
They could do that. The Republican leadership says that they feel that it would be irresponsible to do that, that what you could be doing is, in effect, giving the new governor, and we're getting a new governor in January. You know, Governor Perdue's not running again, so it's either going to be Walter Dalton or Pat McCrory. That new governor could end up having to, on the first day in office, make big-time budget cuts just to make the budget balance. I mean, the governor's got the responsibility, constitutional responsibility to do that. That's something that's similar to what happened, if you remember way back when Mike Easley first became governor. Pretty much that's what he dealt with the first couple of weeks.
When a budget like this stays on the books, because it's a 2-year budget bill,
Right.
July 1st, this weekend, that's the deadline. They will come in after that. Will the state experience these cuts immediately, or is there a phase in when you deal with a budget and you see a lot of cuts coming, money running out here and there?
Well, it takes effect on the first day, and really you don't have the budget authority to spend the other money. So it's something they're going to have to look at. What are we going to do right away? If next week, Monday, really the 2nd is going to be the first day, practically speaking, that most government employees are going to be back at work.
How well does this play politically to have Speaker Tom Tillis and President Pro Tem Phil Berger calling a press conference to say, if you veto this bill, this was earlier this week,
Right.
you're going to get the 2nd year of our budget. Nobody wants that.
Right.
Why would they pass a budget that they wouldn't want the 2nd year it's in effect?
Well, you don't know, you didn't know a year ago what the economy was going to be like right now. So you had to go ahead and make decisions based on your projections at the time. Now, we used to just have 2-year budgets and they didn't even come back. Of course, that was a long time before I came here. That was back in the 60s and very early 70s. It was in the early 70s, I think. I believe 74 may have been the first year we actually had a short session to come in and adjust the budget. The state's growing. We got almost 10 million, if not more than 10 million people now. We didn't have that many people back then. Government has grown. The budgets are just so much larger today than they were then, and there's just so much more unpredictability about how much money is going to be coming in. We have no idea what the economy is going to look like in 6 months. I mean, we all hope for the better, but we see signs that maybe that's not the case.
Here's what we do know. Over $200 million in federal stimulus money that helped public educators. That money is gone.
Right.
And I've not looked at the 2011 budget, I'll admit that. You glance at it once it becomes law, but that's a hole that is not filled in year 2 of this budget, of the current budget. It is partially filled in the budget that was vetoed.
Right.
Will the focus politically be on the K through 12 education dollars, or is there something else in this budget that will garner the public's attention rather than just public schools?
I think there will be some focus on that. I think there will be focus on salary increases for teachers and state employees that won't happen if they don't come to some sort of agreement. I think something else that's going to be brought out is there was actually a cut in the gasoline tax. And prices are going down a little bit at the pumps now, but 2 or 3 cents a gallon on gas, that's just not going to happen.
I heard that reset was coming anyway. That it's going down in July, and it would just cap it at the new lower rate, just by the way the formula works with the state.
Okay, that would happen, but there would be no cap in the future. So if toward the end of the year or a year from now, I mean, it goes up and down. I mean, there's such huge cycles. It could go up again. It could go up again in January.
Looking at the budget from 2011, if everything holds, the stalemate holds, the Senate leaves, doesn't want to fight this out publicly heading into July 4th week. Politically, who's more at risk of suffering some ill effects of this? Would it be the governor and the Democrats, hence Walter Dalton, Senate Republicans, or House Republicans, because they're all three very distinct in this climate?
Right, they are. I tend to think that the legislature is going to be able to say, we passed a budget that actually filled this in, that actually helped out, that was actually better, and the governor vetoed it. I think they're going to be able to make that case. Although I'm sure the Lieutenant Governor Dalton and the Democratic Party is going to try to push the other way. Yeah, that's something that, I mean, again, that's going to play out over the next few months as we head into the election. Politically and logistically, behind the scenes, do you expect the Senate and House to work with the governor to try to reach an agreement so that we get a different kind of budget, or will this thing draw a line in the sand and it's looking like year 2 of this budget nobody seems to want will take effect? Well, Governor Perdue expressed over and over again, there's still time, there's still hope, there's still time for compromise. There could perhaps be some work going on in the House to get some Democrats to help support the veto override. There could be some work going on there to maybe have a supplementary budget that might help bring them along. That could be some more money for education, or for this project or that project. That's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of stuff that goes on behind closed doors, and you never really know. And you can kind of figure it out when you see the things come out in the bills, but you won't know till that happens. That's why you have to just be down here hanging around listening. You have to. Well, Barry, I appreciate you being on the show. Your expertise always welcome, particularly on a late-breaking, late weekend story like this one. Thank you, sir. Thank you. It's good to be here. Catch the show online at facebook.com/legweek or unctv.org/legweek. Thank you so much for watching.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.